Hey, lovelies. So it's been a little while since I've posted on YouTube. And it's not because I've been away from tarot, but I've just been away from YouTube. I've been writing. This is the the sign of writing. Working on tarot bones, which I'm finishing up. Very exciting. It's been really fun. No, who am I joking? It hasn't been fun to write. Writing is never exactly fun. I was describing to a friend of mine a couple weeks ago that when I write, and I'm often compelled to write, and I'm often writing under deadline, which heightens the sense of compulsion, it feels like there's like this octopus squid thing on my face that is pulling the words out. Like if I'm lucky, I get in the zone, and then like I'm, tunneling into the writing, and it's not fun. It's all consuming, it's compulsive, it is what I have to do, but not fun. But I mean, I love this stuff. So anyway, that's the book I'm working on, Tarot Bones. Llewellyn's coming out with it next year. They actually need the manuscript though. So Barbara, if you're watching this, I'm writing, really I am. And then finishing up the Drop 'em 78 challenge, which was very deep and powerful for me. Both the decks that I was working with involved this deep dive into the archetypes and the unconscious and the world of dreams and the world of all of the watery spiritual goodness of the heart and the soul, and also both decks, Nicholas Bruno's Somnia Tarot and Con and Selesnik's Drowning World Tarot, which, oh my God, that blown away by that deck. Somnia Tarot is amazing too, but I knew it would be. Drowning World. Both of them are COVID decks. They were both created in the context of the pandemic, and they both have that feeling of, creating and taroting at a moment of global calamity, at a moment that feels apocalyptic. And so I'm recording this video on January 20th, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Inauguration Day. And what I am carrying in my heart is how tarot and all of the spiritual work that I'm doing, my Zen practice, my meditation, the work that I do as in counseling and consultation with clients, the work I do reading for clients, how all of that is about finding the center in the midst of a spinning, drowning world. And thanks to the lovely Nick Medicine Crow in the Mindful Tarot community, calling you out, Nick, I hope that's okay. My attention was drawn back to a reading that Nick reminded me I had done of something called the pivot reading. Link is below or in the corner. I'm not sure. I'll figure out. Something I was playing with a couple 3 years ago, really asking the question, how do we read for change? Change is always happening, right? And as a Buddhist and a non-dualist whose whole spiritual practice and whole life and heart is about settling into the oneness of all things, and really kind of working against my natural organistic tendency to separate out self, other, me, world, but to really work with that tendency and work against that tendency and see the interconnection of all things. For someone like me, everything is change. Change is always happening. But transformation, how do we pivot? How do we redirect? How do we actually move in a new path, I have had moments of great transformation in my life. We all have, maybe large and small, moments where you spend day after day after day facing the wall and you're like, there's nowhere to go. Or you're in a corner and you're like, I can't go that way. I can't go that way. I'm stuck. And then suddenly somehow you become aware that like the universe is tapping you on the shoulder and that you can turn around. And it's not one option or two options. It's like a universe of options, right? These moments of transformation. How do they happen? How do we pivot? And so, a couple, 3 years ago, I was playing with a method that I was calling, pivot readings. I look back at those videos, very typical Esther stuff, very complicated, very much like me in the middle of my practice, like, hey guys, I'm doing this. Does it make sense? And I've been thinking about it more and more, and really wanting to offer something. So here's the something. I talk a lot in Mindful Tarot about the way in which every tarot spread and the tarot as a whole is a mandala, right? It's giving us a vision of wholeness, a snapshot of the world as it is right now. And even a spread like the Wheel of Life, which I cast at the end of the Drop in 78, looking ahead to 2025. And I have 13 cards and they're, January all the way through December for 2025. And then there's a card at the center, the hub card, the hub of the wheel, 13 cards. Even a spread like that, which is addressing the turning of my life over a period of time. So there's a time element. Even that, it's still providing a mandalic expression, a map, a mandala of wholeness, helping me ground right here and right now in the center, in that still point at the center of the wheel, which on some level is the hub card in a mandala Wheel of Life spread. But it isn't just that one card that is the still point at the center of the wheel. It's the way the whole wheel, as I come to understand it, has a kind of unity that captures how all the pieces are interconnected right now, every moment. And they're all connected as they are all in motion. It's a universe. It's a universe of interconnected parts that combine to form the whole of Esther right now, of me, of my life, of me in the universe, of the universe as me, the universe appearing as me. It's a whole. Change is happening. That change is part of the whole. And, right, I still want to know where and how I can put my energy into this wheel through my awareness that can create a pivot, that can find a fulcrum point, that can find a way to move with more grace, more skill in this wholeness. So the example that, I often use when I'm talking about this sort of thing is to say, the law of gravity, things fall 9.8 meters squared per second, right? The law of gravity, the force of gravity, it will be expressed whether I fall down the stairs or dance a pirouette, right? Both of those physical expressions are expressions of gravity and its impact on my body. But I'd rather dance a pirouette than fall down the stairs. So it's that sense of how do I work with this mandala, this wholeness of my life, now that I can see it in a given tarot spread? How do I work with that so that I am pirouetting in my life instead of falling down the stairs? How does the pivot, the fulcrum, the true transformation happen? How do I become aware and activate that sense that the universe is tapping me on the shoulder and that I'm seeing the infinite opportunity all around me? The answer is finding the wobble. Now, this is something that's been in my tarot practice all along. It's been hidden in plain sight, but it's actually the key, finding the wobble. So I'm going to demonstrate the wobble with the first 3 cards in my Wheel of Life spread. And here they are. Okay. So January, this is, by the way, the Somnia Illustrated. So it's not the deck that I was using for the drop 'em, but it's Nicholas Bruno's illustrated version of this deck, which is quite beautiful and has a very different feel. But anyway, here we go. My card of the month for January is the Ten of Swords. Okay. Now, if I look at what the card is that's to the left of that on the wheel, the card that's my December card, it's the Page of Swords. And if I look at the card that's to the right of it on the wheel, which is my February card, that's the Seven of Swords. So I'm just looking at the very top of my wheel of life, and I'll plunk an image of the wheel, maybe several images, so you can see what it looks like in the original Somnia, as well as in the illustrated, and then also in the Tarot of the Drowning World. And just a note, when I do the Wheel of Life spread, I always put January in the position at the top of the wheel, even though, you know, you could say, well, that's 12 on a clock, and so that should be December. I hadn't even thought of it that way. It's like, it's the first card I draw, so it's going to be at the top. So that's what's at the top of the wheel. So here we go, at the top of the wheel. And I want to know this month, in the month of January, my Ten of Swords month, I want to know where there is an opportunity for transformation. I want to read where the change is, the aliveness of this moment, how I can work with this moment in a way that truly transforms my life, that is the equivalent of pirouetting as opposed to falling down the stairs. So I'm going to look to the Wobble. And the Wobble is just that sense of what's off balance as we look at a pair. So everything I have to say about tarot spreads and tarot reading really comes from having lingered with the archetype of the Chariot. So I'm thinking about the wobble that happens as we navigate our lives, given that there's one dark horse or sphinx and one light horse or sphinx, that our lives are filled, we are beings of bilateral symmetry, but there's always some asymmetry in the system. There's what's on the right, there's what's on the left. They're mirror images, they're not the same. Our world, we humans, we think in dualities, and those dualities always have some degree of tension, or what I'm calling wobble, between them, even if they reflect each other. Even if they echo each other, even if they rhyme with each other, there's some wobble. So I want to find the wobble now in these two cards. And again, this is kind of like basically doing a Chariot spread, but for the purpose of finding where there's pivot, where there's transformation in my January, in my Ten of Swords. Okay, is this making sense? I don't know. I'm talking to an iPad. It's not talking back, which I think is probably good for my mental health. Hopefully this is making sense. So where is their wobble here? Seven of Swords, Page of Swords. Both figures facing away. One figure moving, one figure standing. One of the images, parts of this image that's fascinating to me is, you know, the Page of Swords with that kind of like page energy of trying to understand, like it's the page of the suit of mind, the suit of understanding, and he's trying to see, they're trying to get a sense of what's going on. They have to put the sword down to pick up the spyglass, that sense of, you know, I can't both dive into the world with action and with incision and incisiveness and understand what's going on. That's part of what it is to be Page of Swords, is to be stuck between seeing and doing. That's the paginess of that card. I always think of the pages as the earth gift of the court, the rooted one, the infantry, the foot soldier one, the kind of lowest to the ground, the most mindful because most at the beginning. And to be at the beginning is to not be able to both see and to do. So he's trying to see, they're trying to see. And then this guy heading up the hill, bound to their spoils, right? Trying to carry it all away. Yeah, there's a wobble here of like how the carrying and the seeing are at odds, how the seeing and the doing are at odds, this retreat on the part of the seven and the stillness on the part of the page. I mean, it goes without saying, I've got all these swords here in this top moment of my wheel of life. And I think the wobble here is, I want both of these figures to give up what they're doing, to put down this burden, not to try to carry anything away, not to hold onto it so tightly. And I want this figure to stop trying to see, to just let go of that effort to cast ahead into the future. There it is. Today is the inauguration, right? To stop trying to forecast and trying to figure it out in advance and trying to carry the burden, to stop all of that. That is what needs to get dropped. Drop this. Drop the spyglass. Drop the burden. Drop it all. How do I drop it all? When I've landed on a question, it feels to me like the wobble has given me something that I can work with, that I can take in. Because I think where transformation comes, where it comes from, is when there's a little interior wobble. Sometimes I describe like the kind of question that I'm looking for from tarot when I'm working with it in its oracular way of helping me navigate into the future, of helping me shift and change. Sometimes the image I use is of like washing sneakers or trainers, I guess some of you might call them, in putting them in the dryer afterwards, and these great big American dryers where the sneaker just goes gunk, 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 goes around and around in the dryer, clunking around. And I think, like, a good question, a koan, we would say in Zen, does that in my heart. It clunk, clunk, it clunks around, and it should like clunk loose some of the inner gunk, right? So this wobble that I'm looking for as I look at these two cards side by side, the two sphinxes in my chariot, this wobble is that clunk, clunk, clunk. I'm trying to get a sense of it and bring it in. And I have, which is, how do I set this down? How do I drop it? How do I drop this burden? How do I let go of the spyglass? How do I stop that effort to carry, to see? How do I do that? That's the work of the Ten of Swords. Okay. Not sure if that landed. Something landed for me. Not sure if it landed for you. That's all I got today. As always, thank you for your practice. I'll be in touch more. If you're interested in more tarot goodness with me, in June of this year, 2025, we'll be starting the third annual cohort of the Mindful Tarot Certificate Program. There will be an info session about that program coming up. Details in the description below. It's a year-long program, small cohort, 20 or fewer, working with me for a year. Can be pretty transformational. Talk about transformation. At any rate, thank you all so much for your practice. May you be well.